One of the biggest days in Jazz history is Tuesday. So we're bonus coveraging all weekend long with special interviews. The first one's next on Locked on Jazz. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum. Yeah, even on the weekend, we ba-dum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum-bum.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Joining us is Nathan Grubel. I'm a fan. Am I pronouncing it right? Is that Grubel?
You got it. You got it.
Grubel.
Nobody's messed it up yet at Locked On. I'm very, very proud to say that.
So we have a great pro. No Ceilings is an incredible draft site. They've taken over the Locked On NBA draft show. Nathan is very active on Twitter, does great stuff if you follow him on X, and also just done a bunch of draft downs. So on this weekend edition, I'm giving you a bonus show today. Giving you a bonus show Sunday with Leaf Tulane, our very own. And then Monday we'll be back with you. And then Tuesday we'll be hyped. And then Tuesday night we'll be like, what are we going to – and we'll add a potentially Hall of Fame player. Like that's literally where we are. There are 4 guys in this draft who all have the potential to be Hall of Fame. They won't be. One of the way it's going to work is that one of them is going to be an MVP candidate. One of them is going to be a top 20 player. One of them is going to be a top 50. And maybe another one's like – unless it's true. Like no other, you can only find like one draft ever that has 2 MVP candidates in the top 4. That's the Derrick Rose, Russell Westbrook draft. Otherwise, you can't find it. So like, as all the hype there, this isn't how it's going to play. That's just the reality. But it sure feels it right now, and it feels awesome. Nathan, I want to have you on just break down these guys.
Sure.
You have, I believe, from watching the NBA mock draft, if you haven't watched this weekend, watch the NBA mock draft. Nathan and Nick do a great job. You've got Boozer 1, right?
That is correct.
Sell me on that.
Cameron Boozer is the most versatile offensive player in this entire class. And I think you've actually done a great job on your show of late, David, hammering home the point that Boozer isn't just your classic back to the basket power forward. Everything about his game is multifaceted and diverse because he can handle the basketball, because he can pass with both hands, because he can operate from the perimeter, call for a ball screen, look for that mismatch and mismatch hunt, which is what a lot of the NBA is about nowadays. That's what makes him so unique at his size. It's that you can post him up. You can utilize him in the pick and roll. You can spot him up from the wings or from the corners and space the court with him. The number of different ways in which he can not only get a bucket for himself, but also set everyone else up on the team for success is just so unique. And it's unlike any other player we have in this draft. And then you factor in, again, how smart he is. His mind is a superpower. He's an excellent rebounder. There are some questions about what he brings on the defensive end of the floor, but from an offensive standpoint, I don't have any questions for him. And in an offense-driven league, that's the type of player I want to take at number 1 overall.
So I've said this about Boozer. I think he's the biggest swing. Like everyone says, we're drafting 1 or 2. You got to take the big swing. He's the big swing to me.
I agree with that.
I also think there's a chance. Like, I think he's also the biggest pendulum. Like, I think he's like, okay, so let's walk through this for a second. I referred to him early in the draft process as a 6'10 Cade Cunningham. Cade Cunningham was not an elite athlete out of Oklahoma State. Actually had a hard time rim finishing for his first 2 or 3 years in the NBA. Still at times does. So that was my comp on him. Let's discuss this. Because then the more I watched his pick and roll, I got a little scared that it doesn't translate as well as I hoped. And so is Cameron Boozer being able to play pick and roll at the top of the offense the meal or the sugar on the meal? Is it just the sugar on the strawberries or is it the strawberries?
I'm not sure you're drafting Cameron Boozer to run like 20 pick and rolls a game, for example, from the top of the floor. I definitely think it's a strength of his. I think if you're doing that with him the entire game, you're losing out on what he can be as a screener and that type of optionality within the offense. Like I think utilizing Boozer not just as a pick and roll ball handler, but as someone who can short roll, pop out to the middle of the floor, and then make decisions from there. I also find that part of his game incredibly fascinating, but I wouldn't just look at him as the handler. I would also look at him as being a legitimate physical screener at 6'9", 250 pounds, which I like where you're going with the Cade Cunningham aspect of this jumbo playmaker who can see over the top of the defense, make everyone else around him better. I love that. You're not necessarily seeing Cade have that same leverage as a screener as you do someone like Cameron Boozer as well. And that's just what makes him so unique. It's not just one thing you're pointing to him and saying, you're going to go do this for me the entire game. It's, we're going to have you do this for 2 minutes. Then a few possessions, we're going to have you go do that. And then we're going to have you go do that other thing like that. That's what makes Cam so unique. When you compare him to these other guys at the top of the draft, you're going to ask them to primarily play the roles that they're in for the extent of the game. With AJ DeBonsa, you're putting the ball in his hands. You want him to operate from the top of the floor. You want him to be that high usage guy. With Darryn Peterson, you're going to utilize him a little bit on and off ball, but you want to hunt for shots and get him good open looks so that he can do what he does best, which is scoring. Caleb Wilson, he's going to be more of an energy guy, a secondary guy. With Cameron Boozer, he can be that secondary and tertiary option, but he can also be your primary. And so because he can fill all of those and check all those different boxes, that's the most unique offensive player you're finding at the top of the draft.
It's interesting. If you look at the NBA, bigs that play handoff,
yep,
almost all of them are non-shooters. It's actually how you deal with a non-shooting big is you play handoff game, and then it forces the defender to come out and guard him because he's going to have to step out to the shooter. Like when when Draymond Green plays handoff with Klay Thompson and Rudy Gobert decides to stay in the middle of the paint, just means that Klay Thompson has a wide open three. So the way you deal with a non-shooter is you play handoff. What's interesting is there's two shooting bigs that have played handoff, Karl-Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic. And they're the two best handoff bigs in the NBA. The numbers of Karl-Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic playing handoff is pretty incredible. Is there something here where a handoff big is actually the Victor Wembanyama elixir? Is actually a magic key to a great offense?
100%. I think a big part of really unpacking why you're setting that ball screen in the first place is to primarily confuse defenders and make them unaware of what you're going to do next. And so when you have that optionality within that screen or handoff action, when Cameron Boozer can actually keep the ball and take a mismatch downhill or punish that mismatch or force the switch in that action, that's the whole point of why you're setting the screen in the first place. If the defense knows immediately what's going to happen next, that's a much easier scout and a much easier game plan. But because of the optionality of someone like Boozer, you're leaving them guessing within the action. And if you're off, even that split second or two, Boozer is 2 to 3 steps ahead of the defender in that specific action. So he's going to know what to do with it next. And because he thinks through things so quickly, that mental processing speed of his, you've probably heard about it and talked about it a lot. It really is a superpower and something that can overcome what other defenses are trying to do, because he's just 1-2 steps ahead. He makes all those right reads. He's an excellent passer. You saw that really be a punishing advantage for Duke in college basketball.
Pretty interesting conversation. All right. I missed a little bit on Sabonis for the same reason. I just struggle when I watch these college players can't get off the ground, and particularly can't get off the ground around the basket. So you watch Boozer on these pick and rolls, and I do love all the things you're talking about. But then when he gets in to the paint, like it's a lot of pump fakes. He's almost never going up straight. And if he's going left, which he prefers to do on the pick and roll, it's always coming back over the other shoulder. That in the NBA goes away really fast. We all have our biases watching, and so it's interesting. I have two that I struggle with when I watch college players, and they happen to both be in this draft, in the top 3 players. We'll get to one in a minute. How concerned are you on the lack of vertical athleticism and really the lack of quick jump on Cameron Boozer?
I'd be a lot more concerned if he didn't have the skill to avoid some of those matchups, if that makes sense. If all he was coming into the NBA to do is play that quote unquote small ball 5 role, and he's exclusively going up against opposing bigs for 40 minutes a night, I'd be a lot more concerned about it, although maybe a smidge less because of how good he was at actually drawing fouls at the college level. He had an absurd free throw rate. He's like over 53% of his shot attempts he was drawing a foul on, which I understand the whistle can blow both ways in the NBA, but given, again, how physical he is, how imposing he is, I do think he'll be able to get that whistle a lot more often than people think at the next level. But it's because he's able to dictate a lot of those matchups and ball screen actions, which comes back to exactly what you wanted to lead the show off with, is how good he is in pick and roll and how that can be advantage for a team who's drafting him. If he's able to dictate what matchup and what player he goes up against, then he's kind of always determining what advantage he has in which specific action. Like, that to me is such a bona fide strength of his. We saw it time and time again in college basketball. It's how he was so productive against teams with size like Michigan, for example. He dominated in that Michigan game because he was able to dictate how a lot of those matchups went. They weren't able to just have a Dybantsa smother him in the post, and that was the be-all, end-all of how the rest of the game went. That, to me, is such a strength because of his ball handling, his coordination, his fluidity, and his passing off of that, to be able to either dictate the matchup, or if he gets himself in trouble, maybe two come over and try to smother the ball. He's going to kick that out, and he's going to find the open man. He's going to get it to where it needs to go. So because he's self-aware and he has the skills to make up for it and determine and hunt those mismatches, I'm not as concerned about him just being an under-the-basket liability because of that lack of elite verticality you're talking about.
Nathan does amazing work. He spends way more time on it than I do. I just want to make sure that's perfectly clear, because I want to throw one thing out where I'm going to quibble with something he said earlier just as we wrap up Boozer. My vision of Boozer, so an NBA star player plays 75 possessions a night. That's about the number. They play 3/4 of the minutes. They play 75 possessions. About 15% of those possessions are in transition. So we drop the number down to about 65 possessions. I do think if he's going to be great, he has to be the primary ball handler on 30 of those 65 possessions. I think he really is going to have to spend half his time being this unique thing where maybe he's coming off a pin down and he's getting a mismatch, and then he's rolling into a pick and roll. And the Jazz don't run a lot of pick and roll, so that'd be 50% of the possessions with him, which is a little different than how we play. But or maybe it's he's coming off a pin down with that advantage in our system. But I do think he's going to have to spend 25, 30 possessions a night as the primary. And maybe it's 20 nights at your point, 20 possessions as a screener, 20 possessions as a ball handler, and 20 possessions doing other stuff or just spotting up. I just think that's, if he's going to be magic, that's what's going to have to happen. So I do think my concern on him is that ball handling pick and roll is not as good and becomes 5-6 possessions a night. And then he's a little more regular. And that's why I think he's the biggest swing. Like if it works, oh my, you've got Luka Doncic, Cade Cunningham, kind of big man playing this game. And the athlete question is interesting because Jalen Brunson's not a superior athlete. Nikola Jokic's not a superior athlete. Like 4 of the top 10 guys in the NBA are not superior athletes.
David, everyone you talk to around the game, be it a coach, a scout, someone who works and develops these players on a daily basis, the more people you talk to, the more they talk about how the mental aspect of the game is arguably even more important than the physical talent when we're trying to project out star players. Obviously, there's athletic thresholds that you have to cross. Nobody's saying that. But in terms of being quick on your feet, anticipating and thinking 2 to 3 steps ahead of what the defense is going to do, that's the skill that really separates the stars from the superstars, and Cameron Boozer has that.
All right, Nathan and I were going to do 20 bonus minutes when we're doing 30 because he's too good. And so we'll come back. We'll talk AJ DeBonsa. We'll talk Darryn Peterson. We'll talk Caleb Wilson as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's extra edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by Kalshi. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code Locked On for $10 when you trade $10. You want to get involved, whether it's World Cup action, you can do that along the way. Find up the matchup. The other day, the USA was playing Australia. USA had a 57% probability to win that game against Australia. So if you bet $100, you got $170 in payout. The World Cup heats up. You can find that. The numbers move in real time. You can buy in or out. I'll bet you can Kalshi the NBA draft as well. You're trading against your peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position for a limited time. Download the Kalshi app. Use the code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, K-A-L-S-H-I, K-A-L-S-H-I. Trade on anything 18 and older. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Even contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ. For those mentioned, for more information, visit kalshi.com/regulatory. Summer greatness. Remember the ice cream truck? And the ice cream truck, what was your favorite? Okay, I liked the drumstick until I found out I was allergic to nuts, and then I tried to figure out how I could eat the drumstick without nuts and still get the chocolate at the bottom of the cone. But the universal, everybody's favorite, when it gets right down to it, when you start talking about the greatness that exists, We're talking the new flavor that 5 Hour Energy has, the flavor explosion that does remind you of summer and makes you go back to the sweet cherry, lime, blueberry, raspberry, and all of the red, white, and blue freezer pops. That's right. Now, 5 Hour Energy is bringing you the flavor combination into the new Firework Freeze 5 Hour Energy shot, blending sweet cherry, zesty lime, and electric blue raspberry into one refreshing shot, inspired by those iconic summer freezer pops. You can hear the ice cream truck around the corner, and you're grabbing that freezer pop. And by the way, if you're allergic to nuts, don't try the drumstick thing. That was really bad advice. Summer schedule gets chaotic. Road trips, tournaments, concerts, long weekends, whatever it is. This is your boost, and it takes you back to childhood and makes you smile. Ignite your taste buds with the flavor of summer. Get the 5 Hour Freeze 5 Hour Energy. Say that 5 times fast. 5 Hour Energy Firework Freeze. Firework Freeze 5 Hour Energy. Both difficult. For more information, visit 5hourenergy.com. All right, with the help of our friends over at No Ceilings, we have 2 amazing products for you. We have a draft guide, free NBA draft guide at lockedonpodcast.com/NBA draft guide. That's a free draft guide, breaks down the whole first round, does our whole mock draft. It's based on our Locked On mock draft with all the breakdowns from No Ceilings. It's taken from all the No Ceilings content. And then if you want a Jazz draft guide, we've made that for you as well. That's taken from all of our content since April 20th. So that's me and Leaf and all that. So grab that. Those are your 2 draft guides. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/Jazz draft guide and lockedonpodcast.com/NBA draft guide. Okay. Let's go to AJ.
Okay.
I actually had a vibe for a while that most NBA media people had him at 1, except for you guys that have Cameron. And the NBA people didn't. However, I ran around a cycle of people I trust and know in the league from being in the league for 30 years on Thursday, and I actually got back that AJ's 1 on most people's NBA boards. So why do you think that is? What is it that has people most excited about AJ?
So we just went through all the reasons why I have Cameron Boozer 1 on my board. But in terms of what I've been projecting will happen in the draft for months, I've said it's going to be AJ DeBonsa, who's the number 1 overall pick. And to me, it's just the easiest sell to make when we're talking about sitting in that GM chair, as you know, David, and having to actually navigate the waters and, deal with an ownership group and worry about how do you market these players and how do you sell these players that you're choosing to your fan base. It's really easy to point to that guy who's 6'9" with a 7'1" wingspan, who's a lot stronger than given credit for, who barrels downhill, who can create around the basket, who has the mid-range scoring touch and the capability of some of the best star scorers that you see in the NBA. And you may have questions about other parts of his game, but all of those elements that matter in terms of selling to an ownership group, the box office appeal, and then who he can become down the road, that's just the easiest player to go with, in my opinion, at number 1. And so that's why I've thought that's going to happen. That's why it doesn't surprise me at all to hear more and more people say they have AJ DeBonsa at 1. Wouldn't surprise me to hear you having him at number 1, possibly. I don't know if you have him at number 1 or not, but
I haven't watched as much as you guys, but I probably have Darryn at 1, just to let you know. I just think it's so easy for him. I just think it's so easy.
Makes sense.
Let's go with AJ. There's 2. One is not his fault. I said this week. I got the ire of BYU fans. He ran 300 pick and rolls and isolations. It's like so much.
Yeah.
That it's almost like I said I wished he went to a different school so I could have watched him do others, like play off the ball and move and do things. And he never did that. Not his fault because he ran 300 isolations and pick and rolls. There are 2 things when I have found busts in the NBA analytically that happen. Not busts, but the one is we get, and I think this is going to happen in this draft too, we overly fall in love with players who run a lot of pick and roll in college because we have a lot of tape on them, we have a lot of highlights, and we have a lot of big moments, and Jalen Hood-Schifino looks good to us, and he's not. And we kind of do this a lot, actually. I could run through a bunch of names for you. The guys have run a lot of pick and rolls. We get pretty excited about them, and then it doesn't really work. I don't know if I feel that way about AJ, but he did run like kind of historically high amount of pick and rolls at BYU, 240, I think. The other one is he just didn't shoot it on the catch and shoot. And so my concern, and this is like, let's make sure we're being perfectly clear. Hear what I'm saying. Definitely there's a caution when we're talking about a BYU player in Utah. I think this is his floor, but I don't think this is great. I think his floor, and everyone I'm going to mention scored 20 points a game, and 3 of the 4 have been all-stars. I got it. I'm not lost on this. But the floor to me is R.J. Barrett, Julius Randle, Pascal Siakam, or Paolo Banchero. And it's a 6'9" big who just doesn't shoot it well enough, and he has to have the ball in his hands for you to play with him, and it kind of screws everything up for him to have the ball in his hands. That's R.J. Barrett in New York. That's Pascal Siakam until he got to Rick Carlisle. That's Paolo Banchero in Orlando right now, and that's Julius Randle everywhere he's been. How legitimate is that concern?
So the second one in terms of the shot is 100% a valid concern. I mean, I'm of the opinion that nowadays any perimeter-oriented player, which is we're primarily talking about 1 through 3, but how the NBA loves to space players out and play 4 round 1 or 5 out, like can even include power forwards in there as well. I think they all have to shoot. Period. End of story. You have to be a complementary player off the catch to be able to provide the type of offensive value you're looking for to win high leverage games, especially in the playoffs. Not arguing against that at all. I think AJ has the mechanics and the touch to continue to improve from 3-point range. So it's a concern. It's something that has to get better, but I do think he's going to get to at least the league average mark from 3-point range. So that's not my biggest concern. You seem you only can get the 34%, 35%.
He gets the 36% as a 3-point shooter. Isn't he a top 10 player in the NBA?
He very well could be. That's what we're talking about, David, with how special this draft class is. That's why everybody's been trumpeting about this thing since November. You have 3 guys at the top of this draft.
I lived it, Nathan. I know how special this draft is. I called Anderson Garcia and Bez Mbang. I understand how great this draft is. Sorry. At some point before the draft, I had to drop that line. If he shoots 36% from 3, he's top 10 player in the NBA. If he can shoot 7, I said this the other day, he shoots 7 threes a game, goes to the free throw line. You cannot find a player, by the way, who shoots 7 threes a game and goes to the free throw line 7 times a game that's not an all-NBA player. That's a guaranteed script. If you shoot 7, I know it sounds weird. Literally go Basketball Reference, go StatHead, look it up. You shoot 7 threes a game and you shoot 7 free throws a game, you're an NBA All-Star. You're a top 10 player in the NBA. It's just that combination.
Yeah. I think offensively, what I want to see from him the most, which he has the capability and the talent to do it, he just always, I don't want to say he hasn't been willing to do it, but there's definitely been times where he's passed up, legitimate assist opportunities for somebody else to go try to get a bucket himself. I think he does need to look for more opportunities to pass the basketball. I think that to me is the one thing that really unlocks and what changes him from some of those other guys that you compared him to. Now, Paolo Banchero, I think, struggles for different reasons, but the RJ Barrett comparison, for example, you think that's his floor, right? AJ is a way more talented passer than RJ was coming out of college. I scouted that draft pretty heavily, very aware of who RJ Barrett was at Duke. AJ's way more talented as a passer. So that to me is how you utilize AJ in these non-straight high pick and roll ball screen situations. You have him work off of a handoff. You have him running off of other screening actions. You have him working from other spots on the floor, attacking closeouts, all of those types of off-ball things you didn't see him do a lot of because he wasn't in the position to, because he had to handle the ball, especially when Richie Saunders went down for BYU. But that's really the biggest thing to me that unlocks all these other outcomes and avoids him just being this guy who is only known for barreling downhill, and if he runs into too many trees, he's going to be stopped and nothing else is going to happen with the offense. I think he is capable to do it, though.
Yeah, I don't see him being like Julius Randle where he's running down the tree and he's got.
I don't either. Yeah,
he's got the mid-range game. He's just going to have to get the 3, because if he doesn't get the spot up 3, he has to have the ball in his hands. And honestly, I've said this all week long. Just being that is my least favorite prototype in the NBA. I really have a hard time watching the 6'8", semi-good ball handling big who has to have the ball because he can't shoot. I just think it kills everyone around him. Julius Randle gets his assists, but he doesn't make teammates better. RJ Barrett in New York didn't make anyone better. Paulo's not making people better. He's trying. I will give Paolo credit. I thought he started trying this year. That prototype of player is a hard one for me to swallow. but that's his worst case scenario. I mean, that's like he's going to score 20 points a game in the NBA.
I have to ask you a quick question because I don't get on a podcast with David Locke every single day. What do you think the Jazz need from a skill perspective the most? Because I would say it's rim pressure more than just what Keontae George provides. And if that's the answer, I think AJ brings the one strength of his that, in my opinion, the Jazz offense might need more of the most. What do you think that is for the Jazz?
My answer on that is actually, so I have twofold on that. We
Sure.
need shooting and ball handling. We do not have enough shooting. It's like, I know Lowry seems to be, but he's actually 36%, and Jaren's a little up below that. And like, we don't have enough shooting, and we don't have ball handling. We have one guy who can handle the ball. So I think we need shooting and ball handling. I also do not think you're drafting this draft for fit. You are drafting this draft to have the best player in your roster in 3 years. This player should be the best in their 3 years in the NBA, and they've hit their maturation process. At the end of the third season, this should be your best. If they're not, it's because Ace Bailey hit. Those are the two players that should be the two best players. So this should be your best player, and that's what you're drafting. And if this player's not your best player in 3 years, it's actually a problem. All right,
agree with you wholeheartedly.
The player that very well may be the best player on the Jazz in 3 years is Darryn Peterson, and we dig into him with Nathan next on Locked on Jazz. The workplace is chaotic. The day is getting busy. You're desperate to get that new job hire done, but you barely have enough time because your inbox is stacked because that person hasn't been hired. I got it. Been there. Felt it. Nasty 360-degree cycle. Here's how you get out of it. It's Indeed sponsored jobs. Indeed sponsored jobs helps you reach candidates who actually fit what you're looking for based on skills, experience, and location. You find the right person, it can make all the difference. Whether it's building a business or building a winning team, it's Indeed sponsored jobs. The best organizations make moves that aren't always the splashiest ones. Maybe it's the Cameron Boozer move, or it's a Darryn Peterson, who I think is the simple pick here. Sometimes it's finding the person who fits exactly what the team needs at the right moment. Other times you find the star that stood out and you realize you've got a gem. And Indeed sponsored jobs is here to do that for you, helping you connect with the candidates that are the right fit for you. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. And when you need the right person to cut through the chaos, job is for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of the show will get $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at IndeedSponsoredJobs.com. Indeed.com/podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Support the show. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Darryn Peterson, to me, is the safest pick of this entire NBA draft because 6'6" kids who weigh 200 pounds who can shoot, don't miss. I don't know that many of them, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now, become top 10 players in the NBA. Booker, to me, is not quite an MVP. Like, I always look at a guy, did he finish top 10 in the MVP voting? That is a major threshold for how I evaluate an NBA player. Booker's done it once, Beal never did it. Like, it's actually hard for a 6'6" guard, 210-pound guard to be a top 10 player in the NBA. So I actually think the likelihood on Darryn Peterson is that he's like top 15 to top 30, and that's his window. Like, I think there's like no other window. Boozer, I think, could be top 5, and I think he could be 70th. And AJ DeBonsa, we just talked about it. I think he could be top 5 if he hits that jumper, but I also think he could be 50th. And a 50th that's tough to like build around, right? Like Boozer's 70th, he's a piece of the team, and you're probably still calculating he's probably helping you win. But like AJ's 50th is like, oh crap, what do we got to trade RJ Barrett before we have to extend him, right? Like that's my view on these three guys. I actually think Darryn is the narrowest window of all of them and the safest pick of all of them. Am I crazy? And what's your take?
No, I don't think you're that crazy. I actually think that, obviously I'm higher on Cameron Boozer's floor than you are, but put that aside, I think in terms of the AJ versus Darryn conversation, there's a number of people who would argue because of AJ's, size and his athleticism and his ability to draw fouls and convert from the free throw line and create efficient offense that way, that he would be like a really, really safe guy to go with at the top. But I'm with you. I think it's Darryn because for most of the season in college at Kansas, he was over 14 3-point attempts from 100 possessions and like 40+% from three. Settled around 38.9, but for a lot of the season, he was 40+ on, we're talking insane volume from 3-point range. NBA teams are always going to need a guard with that skill set, especially one, to your point, 6'6" in shoes, 6'10" wingspan, makes plays on the defensive end. For me, the biggest question around Darryn, what I did not see him do in college that looked the same as what he did in high school, was his ability to handle the ball in pick and roll situations. It just did not look the same. When Darryn was looking to operate a lot of ball screens in high school, he looked to take a wide angle off that screen. And because he was so much quicker, so much more explosive than the guys he was going up against, he would get to the rim in a second, or he'd be able to quick stop and pop that mid-range shot. He did not have that same quickness and explosiveness in college. We can set all those reasons to the side about the why. I think that medically, I haven't heard anything too concerning about Darryn. I don't think NBA teams are that concerned about it, but what he showed in college at Kansas, he was not able to play those ball screens in the same way. He got blitzed a lot.
I want to stop here because this is super fascinating. This is the best analysis I've heard from anyone on this. So I'm going to interrupt you because I actually want to dig into it.
No, go for it.
All right. So he's coming off a ball screen, and in the high school game, he's able to take this rounded route because he's just so much better than everyone. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
He's doing the same thing in college, and he's getting pushed off his track. That's why he never gets to the rim. That's why he only took like 12% of his shots at the rim. That's what you're seeing. And he's not able to turn the corner and get the shoulder on the guy and get the edge.
He was not turning the corner the same in college, no. And so when you're not able to do that, it puts you in position to have to be a little more craftier than you were used to on the ball. I didn't really see a lot of the same in-between stuff that you see from some of the best guards who play in a lot of pick and roll and are put in those positions a lot. I didn't see that a lot from Darryn. I didn't see a lot of the second and third level passing reads. I saw a lot of either something was right in front of him, he could make it. If something got a little too tough, he was put in a different position where two were thrown on him at the ball. Like, he was not the same player that he was in high school. I think he's going to have to become a lot craftier. He's going to have to get a lot better at keeping somebody on his hip, changing up gears, using that mid-range area a lot more, which he's capable of making a lot of shots from that mid-range area. But I think he has to not only weaponize that space as a scorer, but also as a passer. I have real questions about how he makes other guys better. If he doesn't, it limits his ceiling. But to your point, David, that doesn't necessarily take away from what his floor can be, which is why I think out of all of these top teams, I think the Jazz is the best situation for him. Maybe not the best situation for Utah. We can debate that. But I think without question, Washington, Memphis, Utah, I think Utah is his best landing spot to be the best version of himself.
I don't want to make this about me because your work's incredible, but I also know my listeners have listened to me for a long time. The same people listening to the show right now have been listening to me and get my opinion. So I want to expose my weaknesses to get your thoughts. So I do fall in love with athletes, and so Boozer's lack of athleticism worries me. And then I fall in love with shooting and athletes. I just love shooters and I love athletes. Like honestly, I fell in love with Cody Williams on 2 plays that were turnovers because he actually did something more athletic in one of the worst drafts I've ever watched in my whole life of players. He actually burst with athleticism. He threw the ball in the third row on the play. And it was literally the play that made me decide I liked him because he actually split 2 defenders with a burst off of one leg. And I was like, oh my God, that's an NBA level play. And I'd seen so few NBA level plays out of anyone in that draft. And that is my weakness, that I will see those bursts and those moments. And I do think that our league is just, athletically, it's so hard. Now, back to Cameron Boozer, 4 of our top 10 players in the NBA are not elite athletes. Like, there's a lot. So this is an interesting concept here on Peterson because I'm falling in love with him because of the 3-play sequence at TCU where he gets the steal, does that. I'm in love with him because of the first half at BYU when he literally showed 4 different levels. I know there's only 3 levels of scoring. He showed 4. Yeah. And he also had his anticipation on steals blows me away. Like, he gets a steal and I have to go back and back up the tape to figure out where it even came from. Like, I never even saw it. Like, it's not like he's ripping on a dribble where someone's coming in. He picked a pass that I never saw coming.
David, I've been scouting prospects for 15 years, and he might be the best pure shot maker I've evaluated in that time. So 2011 draft up to now in 2026 might be the best pure shot maker that I've evaluated. And if that's the case, how much should some of these other things actually matter? If you know what his strength is, you know how good he is at it, and you're drafting him into an offensive system that prioritizes getting guys shots in the spots that they want them, high quality, high efficiency shots, then should some of these other things that I might have concerns about even come into play and even matter when we're talking about what's actually best for the Utah Jazz?
It's interesting. All right, we're going to wrap. By the way, I hope everybody else liked this. This is like one of the most fun interviews I've ever done. This is great. This is like reminds me of my old Chad Ford days when he and I used to go back and forth on this stuff.
Shout out to that legend. He was one of the first big timers, David, who actually gave me a platform and wanted to have me on the podcast. I love Chad Ford.
All right. We're just going to F with everyone's head here on the final question of the day. Why will Caleb Wilson be the best player of all of them in 5 years?
Oh, man. I love Caleb Wilson, David. Like us at No Ceilings were on the forefront of having him when it was conversations around Nate Ament maybe being the fourth best player in the draft, when it was Michael Brown Jr. being the fourth player. I'm talking about preseason. We all had Caleb Wilson as the fourth best player in this draft class. Because when you go back and watch his stuff in high school, how freaky athletic he was back then and some of the things he was able to do, it's special. Then you watch him get to North Carolina. You see that dog. You see the motor. You see his willingness to do every little thing it takes to win. You see the shot blocks, the anticipation, reading some passing lanes. You see, obviously, the long strides to the basket, his ability to just get to somewhere in a quick second. You see the improvements as the season goes on from a ball handling standpoint, for at least from a standstill passing standpoint, although he had some highlights where he delivered some crisp passes on the move. Caleb Wilson, I get the concerns about him from three. Very similar to the concerns you're going to have with AJ. I think AJ is actually further along as a spot-up three-point shooter than Caleb is right now, but take that element out of it. I think Caleb's drives to the basket are a little bit different. Those stride lengths are even a little longer. I think the mid-range touch is very real. I think the willingness to pass and his vision to find guys is very, very real. I think his ability to dunk the basketball and always be an elite interior finisher is real. I think with Caleb Wilson, it's not that the three-point shot doesn't have to come along, but I think if he continues down the path he is now, he could become one of, if not the most terrifying inside the arc offensive threats that we have in the entire NBA.
All right. Last year might have been the difference. 2025 draft might be also. We've only had one draft since 2011 where there was an MVP, a top 20, a top 50, and a starter in the top four. That was the 2021 draft.
Yep.
We have had three drafts in which there was an MVP, a top 20, and a top 50 player. That was 2009 and 2007, along with 2021. I mean, we're going back pretty far. And I think last year with VJ and Dylan and Cooper, and it feels like, and we're getting, and actually draft performance by GMs is getting better, which is interesting, by the way, in the last few years.
Yeah.
You have to choose your MVP, your top 20, your top 50, and you're just a starter. Go.
MVP is going to be Cam Boozer. I think my top 20 would be, I'll go AJ. My top 50 would be Darryn, and then my starter would be Caleb. But I don't feel great about that, though. That's the thing, is I think all of their ceilings are higher than the labels you just made me give them. I understand why we're doing it for historical context, but like I don't want that to sound like I don't love Caleb Wilson and can't reason with maybe taking him second or third in the draft either. Like, I think he's awesome.
Well, we have no ceilings here. How about a bunch? Nathan, you're awesome. That was super fun. That was great. I loved it. I hope our listeners loved it. I absolutely loved it. Follow Nathan on X at
Draft Deeper.
Follow him at No Ceilings. Follow him at Locked On NBA Draft No Ceilings. These guys are awesome. They're way better than me. Listen to him, not me. And be rooting for the Jazz to draft Cameron Boozer with the second pick. And I think we just learned that if the Wizards draft Cameron Boozer, he thinks we should draft AJ DeBonsa, is what we just learned with the way he did that.
That's correct.
Has been a bonus edition, weekend edition of Locked On Jazz. Thanks for tuning in. Nathan, thanks for the time.
Of course. Happy to be here.
We send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA on YouTube. And for more draft coverage, get Locked On NBA with No Ceilings and Nathan and Tyler and the crew.